Have you pressed the button to the right place? I did this yesterday and I couldn't hear for ages. Okay, so we're here to talk about podcasts and Manchester. And what I want to do first of all is I just want to just do a quick show of hands. So everybody put your hands up for a start. Okay, that means I know you are listening. Those of you with don't out your hands up. Okay, so put your hands up. Hands down now. I love that you just did what I said. Hands up if you live and work in Greater Manchester. Oh, okay, brilliant. Okay, so do you live and work in the north? Okay. Born and bred in Manchester? Oh, there's less and less. Moved to Manchester, feel like you are totally part of the city? Oh, yes, I love that. And do we have a bunch of non-Manx, non-northerners here? Yeah, we do. Okay, brilliant. That's good to know, isn't it? Okay. So why am I asking you all of this? Well, Lisa and I have known each other for a good few years now, and we both absolutely adore Manchester, and we both absolutely adore podcasts. 5 years ago, a mate of ours at BBC Radio Manchester, Lisa was talking to her and said, I quite fancy doing a podcast. And our mate went, I know Kate Cocker, come and meet her. And that's how we became friends, and we started making a podcast called We Built This City, which celebrated the Mancunians, born, bred and adopted, that have put their heart and soul into Manchester. So I produce it, Lisa presents it. We then went and won a British Podcast Award for it, thank you. And then we actually loved working together so much that we set up Purposeful Podcast, which is a podcast production company. So We Built This City has been going for 5 years. Next month, we've had nearly 100 Manx on it. We've interviewed them. It's amazing. We've done over 100, or you've done over, I'm taking credit for it now. You've done over 100 episodes. But I want to be clear, this is more than a podcast. This is an opportunity to look at how being a true part of the city, like Manchester, can really shape your business. So, Lisa, why did you want a podcast?
Well, I'm a born and bred Manc, and I started my career in Manchester. I had an opportunity to go to London for a job in advertising, actually. And when I got down there, they were all smoking Marlboro Reds, and there were no flat vowels, and it just wasn't for me. So I came back up north. My mother was devastated. And so Manchester's been my career. I set my business up here in 1996, 1 month after the IRA bomb. And I was so grateful for the opportunities that Manchester has given me, that 5 years ago I just really wanted to create some evergreen content, something that was there kind of forever, just to give thanks to the amazing people that make Manchester.
And I want to be clear here that we didn't, when you set out, you weren't worried about numbers or anything like that, were you?
No, I really didn't care if anyone was listening. Actually, I was hoping nobody was, because the first time I heard my own voice, it was horrendous. And my son actually, a couple of months ago, said, after 5 years, he went, you sound all right now. He said, you sounded like a bloody robot when you started. So thanks, son.
That's not true.
No, it was. I didn't care who was listening. I just wanted to do it creatively.
And so we've talked, I bet you've been to a lot of sessions where we're talking about data. Yeah? Nod. I've heard the word assets said about 20,000 times today as well. But I want to go at it slightly differently. So on the podcast, you ask every single guest, what do you miss the most about Manchester when you're not here?
Yeah.
And what do they usually say?
Well, they all say, it's a cliche, but it's the people.
Okay, so what is it about the people of Manchester and the people in this city region?
Well, I just think it's collaboration. It's the fact that every door is open in the city. And if you're not from Manchester, it can feel quite intimidating if you don't know where to start. But in my view, you start by asking. And the other thing that we do in Manchester is that I call it the Manchester emotional bank account. So you've got to make sure that you put more in your bank account than you take out. And if you do that in Manchester, then you can ask for whatever you need. And if somebody can't help you, they'll find somebody that you can.
And that, I don't think, was more true that when we launched 5 years ago. So can you remember what was happening 5 years ago at this point? Yeah? What was happening? Yeah, we were all going, should we send the kids into school or not? And it was literally, Lisa and I were talking about this podcast we were launching. And so we launched on the 26th of March, and I think we went into lockdown on something like the 20th or 23rd. So talk to me about what happened at that time.
Yeah, well, I think if you know Manchester, you'll know that we're extremely good in crises. And if you look back over hundreds of years, the people of the city come together in times of hardship or difficulties, and they gather together. They'll gather together, St. Peter's Square for the Peterloo massacre. They'll gather together after the arena. If anyone was here after the arena attack, the night after the attack, there was a vigil, which was one of the most moving experiences of my life, where we came together to hurt and feel pain together. But in COVID, we wanted to come together, but we couldn't. There was no way. And that was the first time Mancs haven't been able to get together to really kind of share those experiences. And ironically, we had 3 episodes ready to go, and we were going to launch it actually live with Gary Neville. And Gary phoned me up and he said, I don't think we can do this live. So we launched it, and the overwhelming response, we got a lot of listeners because it was a place where people could come together and understand how Mancunians were dealing with the situation and how they could help each other.
But they were weird times, weren't they? Because let me ask you this: why was it so important to you at the time?
Well, my business pretty much fell over overnight. And it came back, but it was a very, very frightening time. And I didn't have any answers. But in doing the podcast, we found out that other Mancunians, from Andy Burnham to Clint Boone, a DJ, none of us had any answers. But the one thing about doing the podcast was it kept me sane, and it kept our team sane. We also learnt new skills. And every single week we were checking in with somebody else to find out how they were navigating and how they were struggling. And it was also, there was humour in that too. So that podcast every single week, although it was a very new thing for me to do on top of the trying to keep the business going, I think it saved us. It saved our souls.
Yeah, it
at
really
the time,
did.
yeah.
It did. And my favourite thing was, at the time, we were all getting used to recording on microphones in our houses, and as sound people, we're all obsessed with it being really like flat sound like this. We've got to make it really good quality sound. So Lisa would be like, talking to Andy Burnham about how she was recording from her knicker drawer to keep the sound flat. We ended up speaking to Carl Austin Bain, didn't we?
Yeah.
Where was he? Can you remember?
He was the LGBT advisor to Andy Burnham, and he recorded in a room that was full of giant rainbow teddies. So we've had and Andy Burnham recorded with a duvet on his head, I remember that. So it was all very humbling and leveling.
It really was. We really got to know each other very quickly all around Manchester, didn't we? So look, I think that, the thing is, it's really easy for us to go, right, we launched in COVID and we got this immediate attention. How has it helped you to continue that connection with the city all the way through to now?
Well, I think if I look back to my business, say 10 years ago, we were very B2B. Launched the business, like as I say, 1 month after the IRA bomb. So we were very involved in placemaking, helping to create new neighbourhoods like Spinningfields, obviously more recently, but Northern Quarter, around the Central Core. So we're very business focused. And over the years we've got more diverse, but we built the city. We talked to politicians, sports people, business people, educators, people who run amazing charities in the city. So what it has done, it's really, really expanded our reach as well. And as a result of that, we've accessed a lot more business. So we built the city as part of our funnel. It wasn't intentional, but we get inquiries now also internationally and nationally from businesses who don't understand Manchester yet, so they can get a real feel for what we stand for. And also, really, it's positioned us as a relationship builder here, which is, so a lot of our business is helping brands and businesses to build those relationships in Greater Manchester.
Yeah, because just before we launched the podcast, you'd gone through a bit of a process of values and you'd changed a few things, hadn't you?
Yeah, so literally probably 6 months before COVID, I felt that the business was, we were growing quite quickly, but we were losing sight of what was important really as a team, and so we went through a process where we put together a whole values proposition called the Roland Dransfield Way. Our second value was no dickheads, and that was actually agreed on it's very difficult to be a dickhead if you're walking past it in 2-foot letters on the wall every day, but it was amazing. And the day before we left the office to go and work from home, everyone had gone, and I stood in front of this wall and I looked at our values and I thought, when we come back, this business could be very different, and it was very different, but I thought our values will stay the same, and our values are what got us through COVID. And And so the values are intrinsic in We Built the City.
Yeah.
So we ask everybody what their values are, because this is a city that is built not on bricks and mortar, but on values.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really made it clear, didn't we, when we started, that we wanted these three, almost like we were like, we need a bit about them, we need a bit about Manchester, and then we go into the values. And what are the values? And we talk a lot about leadership, and we talk a lot about business, even within all of those sectors. And the no dickheads comes up a lot. My favourite one is about mistakes. It's admit it, fix it, move on. And what's really weird is from working on the podcast, I now have like all of these values in me. And we, as a result, we've set up a business and we're constantly working together now. We have our own businesses and then we have this overlapping business that runs by those values. And I think that's a really good example. You know, creativity, community, they thrive on collaboration. So how does collaboration work in Manchester, do you think?
Okay, well, we've got 2 minutes, haven't we?
Oh, is that what we've been talking?
Yeah,
I've been looking.
so.
I've been like this.
So, collaboration in Manchester. So in Manchester, as I say, it's what you put in is important as to what you take out. Commitment, do the small things. Also, if you want to bring a brand or a business to Manchester, we say don't just come here and kiss a few babies and then go back to London. Back in the day, we had developers that thought this was an amazing place to develop, but they didn't want to commit. If you come here, you've got to decide that you're going to help Manchester create legacy. And so you've got to use your own resources to create more resources for the city region. And if you do that, that's how we collaborate, and that's how you're remembered in the city.
Yeah. And even like the MPA that we work with really closely, who is the like fulcrum, I guess, of the creative agencies and the creative media here. The Manchester Publicity Association, who were thanked on stage yesterday for being the plug-in for MadFest and to be able to infiltrate, if you like, the city very quickly.
Yeah.
Do you want to just quickly do
because Cindy's on the second row.
Yeah, she's going like this.
So with the MPA, it's an example. What we are really, really good at in Greater Manchester, we have a lot of really successful and effective membership organisations, and MPA being one of them. And the MPA is full of incredibly talented people who, a lot of us are competitors, but we get together and we put our collective competition to one side for the greater good. And what we're trying to do at the moment is really grow and retain talent and money in Manchester. So we don't care if we're actually against each other at a pitch the next day. In those sessions, all bets are off, and it's collaboration at its best.
So I think, it's fair to say that I think sometimes we think that we do have to have this quick return on investment when it comes to something like this, when you're making content and you're marketing content. I mean, John Roberts said yesterday, the marketing you do now will pay off in 3 years. So 5 years on, you feel like it's paid off?
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And we've made this. We've collaborated. I think we've created a bit of a strand that runs through Manchester and a bit of a shortcut, actually. If you're coming to Manchester, it's a really good thing to listen to from the point of view, it's a patchwork of all the people that you need to know and what they've brought to the city over the years. So you can sit in a client meeting and know what you're talking about, definitely. Final question then. When you're not in Manchester, same question as you ask all your guests, what do you miss the most?
It's a cliche, but it's the people.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.